Hey y'all, I'm Angie. Welcome to my channel where I do stuff. If you're new here, thank you for joining me, and if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back. So in today's video, I'm going to pack up a whole bunch of my microfossils and have a little chat with me, and I'm gonna tackle something that is kind of controversial in the rock hounding community. I don't want y'all to hate me for this. I don't want to have people unsubscribe because they disagree with me. Like, there's room for all opinions. And I don't want to alienate anybody or make them feel like they can't reach out or, whatever. But there are a lot of different ways that people feel about sharing their rock hounding locations. And so I'm going to address a few of those while I pack up today, and I hope you'll stick around to join in the conversation. There are a lot of reasons why I don't share my rock hounding locations. Number one, they might be on private property. 96% of Texas is privately owned, and the locations may be people I know or people I've networked with, but giving away their privacy by disclosing locations isn't really something I'm willing to do. And it's a lot easier to just not mention the location than it is to constantly tell people over and over again a million times because a million people ask, oh, it's private property. Oh, it's private property. So it's just easier to not say. And another thing that a lot of people don't think about is that the internet is very public. So there's a big difference between becoming acquainted with someone you met over the internet and sharing personal hunting grounds. But I'm never just going to blast it over YouTube. Anybody in the world can access my videos, including people who don't really have a vested interest in the community. And this gets kind of convoluted, but try to follow my thought process here. I am all for helping someone get into rock hounding, and I'll help them find locations, or I'll direct them to well-known public locations, as well as tell them what to look for and what to expect when they get there. But I don't really feel comfortable giving location information about places that are ecologically sensitive, maybe really dangerous to get to, or places that have very few or rare specimens to just any Joe Blow on the internet who leaves a comment or sends an email. Now, if they're a subscriber and I've seen their comments around before and all of that, I have a tendency to feel a little bit more comfortable with those people because they've been around for a while. But someone who's never left a comment before, I've never seen them, they don't have a channel or anything like that, I'm not just going to give that information out publicly. And that's just the way I feel about it. And this is kind of where things start to get a little confusing and hard to follow. So I'm sorry if I'm not accurately explaining this. But so there are a lot of people who go to YouTube or the internet when they first start getting interested in something. And maybe they're doing it because they found out about it from someone else, or maybe they're getting into it because a love interest is into it or something like that. But when people kind of like half-ass dabble in something, they tend to not take it seriously or as seriously, and they don't always, in the case of rock hounding, consider sustainability or ethics. And if you're into any hobby, I know you can think of people you've met in the community who kind of fit that description. People who kind of seem all into it and then all of a sudden they disappear and you never see them on the forums, you never see them at another meeting ever again. Yeah. Being a rock hound involves quite a bit of land stewardship as well, especially in Texas. Reason being that there aren't as many opportunities for rock hounding publicly as there are in some other states. People acting irresponsibly is one of the biggest reasons why pay-to-dig locations are shutting down, and it is the biggest reason public access is getting restricted. Now, to be fair, it's not typically rock hounds who are getting river access closed off. It's the dumpers, the criminal activity, and the fishermen who trash the place. But if you ask any of the ranchers who used to open their property to rock hounding who have since had their info removed from the guidebooks, they will tell you it's the rude, inconsiderate, and entitled public who nudged them into the direction of shutting down access to their stuff. It's one or two students who are ruining it for the class, basically. So this is probably the biggest reason why I don't publicly share my spots, is because finding your own spot instead of asking someone else is a pretty big source of pride. And it's likely to net a much more fun experience when you're out there on your own finding specimens that haven't been picked over or overly publicized. Every spot that I currently hunt, with the exception of 2, being Whiskey Bridge and McFadden Beach, are all a result of my own research, or they're locations that have been shared with me by people I took the time to get to know instead of just like cold calling them for site information. They knew they could trust me, and I offered up one of my locations for them as well, in trade, basically. So the amount of time and effort, and sometimes money, that I put into researching sites and locations and papers and trying to get owner information and contacting them and emailing professors, all of that stuff that I do it's an extensive amount of work. Gaining legal access is time consuming as well sometimes. But the thing is, if I can figure it out, so can anyone else. Google is your friend. And all of this information that I found, the starting place was always somewhere using the computer. Either that or going back through books that I found in a library. And with the amount of time that I've spent doing all this, I just feel a little proprietary, I guess. I don't know. I'm not trying to keep people from having fun. I'm not trying to keep all this stuff for myself. There is absolutely plenty to go around as far as I've been able to see. But I will always offer to help people find locations near to them, explain how they can continue to do it on their own. I will explain how they can find new sites for themselves, how to figure out their state's laws regarding rock hounding, fossils, and access, as well as helping them with ID. I will give them links. I will share apps. I will do everything I can. But I put a lot of effort into finding the places for me to go. And so, yeah, I'm a little protective of that. I'm more of a teach a man to fish kind of rock hound instead of buying your dinner tonight. And I know there are a lot of people who disagree with me, and you know, they have a lot of objections to everything that I've stated, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but the people with those mindsets also have never lived in a state with extremely, extremely limited restricted access. And I feel like that really does make a difference in your mindset. So the 2 people I've had extensive conversations with who live here, one of them said, no, I tell everybody my spots because everybody should be able to share in the experience. And like, okay, they're not really wrong, but like, they're also not on the internet. They also don't have a YouTube channel. These are people that they somehow met face to face talking about rocks or fossils. And that's just a different dynamic. You know, I would feel more comfortable sharing information with someone I met face to face where somehow we came together due to a shared love of the hobby. I wouldn't have as much of an issue with it that way. The other person said, oh no, I always share my information because they don't know what they're looking for, even if I told them. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because, you know, newbies often don't know what they're looking for. And so even if you are very specific, sometimes they still don't know what to look for unless there's someone there physically showing them what to look for at those locations. And that is sort of my point about why you need to research your locations before you go anywhere. And that's why you need to do your homework, you need to do your due diligence, and you need to know what you are doing instead of expecting other people to do that work for you. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting a lot of time in the field. And that's a sad reality that I think every single rockhound can say they've had to deal with at some point, whether they've done the research or not. But I do feel like if people want some assistance in finding locations and understanding how to access information about all of that and learn about the species and the science behind it and everything, I think that is a better function for me and my contribution to the rockhound community than if I were to just hand over locations and say, you know, there you go, have fun. I think teaching people how to find out that information for themselves is a better option, because that's a skill that they can continue to use you know, for as long as they choose to partake in the hobby. And so maybe that's the teacher in me also. I don't know. Anyway, that's just a little bit of an explainer from me about why I don't just publicize all of my locations on my YouTube channel. Well, y'all, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. You could have been anywhere else, doing anything else, and you chose to spend a few minutes with me today, and I greatly appreciate that. Like I said before, I hope that I didn't make y'all hate me for some of the beliefs that I hold. And I hope if you have questions or if you have comments that you'd be more than happy to share those in a respectful and tactful way. I'd love to hear it. Anyway, with all of that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, then I hope you'll consider subscribing, because I would love to see you back here next week when I do more stuff. Bye.